And it looks like we're off. On the right side of the screen, we got Zinpars. On the left side of the screen, we got Texter. They're both starting off here. So right at the start, you're going to see the little prologue section between the two of them. There shouldn't be too much of a difference in terms of their times at this point. Should be relatively close coming out of the chapter. It's a pretty basic chapter where you just taught the mechanics of the game. So you can jump, you can run, you can climb, and you can grab things. So all the basic things that you know and love from this video game. And right at the start here, we actually see Texto as like a second or two lead, I believe. Yeah, about a second lead, as Zinpars had a small mistake during the prologue there, but it's no huge deal. I'm just going to sync up the timers real quick. So they're a little bit more closer. We messed up the sync, but we'll get that going when Texter starts Forsaken City. Or it'll fix itself naturally. So Texter's starting in Forsaken City here. We can see him using a bunch of different movement techniques that I may as well go over. We have the when you dash upwards and then jump off of a wall, you get a nice high boost there, as you see used to perfect effect. And you'll see that used a lot throughout the run. We've also got the types of dashes that we can use, as we see the timers sync up now, so we're all synced up and ready. They look pretty damn close at the moment, only a screen apart. As they're now tied, brilliant. So yeah, one of the main dash mechanics in this game is when you dash and then jump after it, you get a bit of a boost. So you can utilize that in many different ways that you'll see the runners do throughout this run. And this is a really cool close race so far. I know it's only a minute and a half in, so I shouldn't be too excited about it, but this is shaping up to be pretty good so far. I like it. Coming up to the end of this chapter on the Zinpars screen, you can see a bit of, oh, he dies first, but you see a bit of a spike jump here, where, well, we'll see if we can get it a third try, Zinpars. Here we go. There we go. Where he holds the ledge just above it, and then falls down onto the ledge, and then jumps off it, which is a bit of a spike jump, although you're not technically jumping off the spikes. And then on the right side of the screen, Zinpars went for neutral jumps up that wall on the left, as they're tied, leaving Forsaken City, which is pretty fantastic. Yeah, so the neutral jumps there is when you jump away from the wall, but you don't hold any directional buttons. So a second you jump off of the wall, you just hold left to go back towards the wall, and you can use that to conserve stamina all the way up the wall. Coming into chapter 2, this is the Dream Block chapter, where, as you can see, there's a lot of little blocks here that we'll get to a little bit later. Zinpar's going for a glitch here, where he resets his Y position after a cutscene, but doesn't get it, unfortunately. It traps you inside the bubble and it's a little bit faster, but that's fine. But we now get to see the Dream Block mechanic, and what they are is basically an infinite dash. So you dash through them and it will send you infinitely in a certain direction, the direction you enter it from. And then when you leave the bubble, one of the important things is you regain your dash. So you're able to clear a lot of distances with these bubbles without actually having to touch the ground. Ooh, Zinpars went for a setup-less on that block there, and Texter went for a setup, so he managed to get through that room a little bit faster, but Zinpars not dying in there, so that helps. But this is the chase section, the battle-in chase section, and you have this thing chasing you 3 seconds behind. So you just make note of where she's going to be, because she's going to be exactly where you were 3 seconds ago, and that'll be utilized a lot later in this chapter. Not a lot later, actually. On Zinpar's screen, you'll be seeing both screens. You'll be seeing it in this room here, where you have to backtrack a little bit, and you have to squeeze past the battle ends, and Texter manages to just squeeze through them in midair. That was very close. Zinpar's unfortunately dying, but he takes the safer route on the second way around. And Texter, in the most dangerous room in the chapter, because it's a very long death, manages to get through it very smoothly. We'll see if Zinpars can follow up with that. Ooh, interesting strategy there to dash through the battle ends. Looked a little bit dangerous to me, but he managed to pull it off, and I'm sure he's practiced it a lot and knows exactly what he's doing. And this is the awake section at the end of the level. There's no enemies, no real obstacles here, it's just you dashing a lot through the slightly intricate platforming, which really gets us to use our dashes. And you can tell here at this point usually who is slightly better at the general dash movement, because we'll see Texter had a little bit of trouble there, and we'll see how Zinpars does. The idea is to try and not touch as many of the springs as possible because they slow you down quite a lot, but they both struggled a little bit through that section, but they're both through it. Yeah, the Badlands are exactly 3 full seconds behind. Okay, so third chapter is... God, I've forgotten the name. Celestial Resort. And you'll see a lot of things like cycles matter in this level. As you can see, we have these dust bunnies, and the cycles of these really determine the strats that each runner is going to be using when you enter a room. And you also have death cycles throughout the entire game, not just this chapter, where the cycles will be different when you die and restart the screen than when you enter it for the first time. So runners have to sort of know those death cycles just in case they end up dying in some screens. You also notice one of the main ideas throughout this chapter used is the keys that unlock blocks to get you to the next section. So the idea of this, especially towards the start of this chapter, is just to collect a bunch of keys. We're seeing a lot of usage of the wave dash technique on Tex's screen, whereas you can hyperdash if you diagonal down right or diagonal down left, dash and jump. It gives you a big burst of speed and horizontal direction. If you can do that from the air instead of from the ground, so if you jump and then dash down right or down left, you can get the same effect, the same dash basically. But yeah, it's useful in different situations, but Texter seems to be using it quite a lot, which is really interesting to me. It's really cool to see the different strats that runners will do, because there are so many variations that you can do in each room. Now on the left side of your screen here, Texter is going to be going for a spike jump in this room, where he jumps off the corner. And if you're jumping away from the spikes on that wall, then you don't actually touch them, so they don't have a hitbox at that point. So. Pretty good spike jump, got it second try, that's nothing to worry about. So this section, you go through 3 different sections to clear the rubbish that you'll see throughout the screen, like these green books in the section on the left here, and the red blocks, sorry, on Zinpars screen. And there are 3 sections that you go through. The order is determined by where the hotel manager is after each section, right? So after you complete one section, he will be standing in a certain position. So for example, on Tex's screen here, you're going to see him fall down here, and then immediately he's right next to Oshiro. So that is planned. You plan to do that route at that specific time, so you can land where Oshiro is standing. As you Texter actually resetting the cycle there. As I mentioned earlier, there are death cycles, so I guess he wasn't very comfortable with the death cycle of that room, so he left and then re-entered. You may see that quite a few times throughout the run, especially for rooms that players might not be familiar with in the death cycle. But because of a few deaths here, Zinpars has actually caught up quite well. He's only a couple screen behind. He's actually going for a fast cycle here. Let's see if he gets it. Okay. He waits for those bubbles. Maybe a smart decision there, but yeah, he's actually caught quite a bit here, so really good passage of play from Zinpars. See Texter getting the lock switches there to open the door. He needs to collect all of the lock switches on the screen, and then the door will move. Both runners showing some really impressive strats for a couple of rooms. We're about to see Texter enter the room with the 4 hyper jumps. So right here, you want to land on these platforms and then do 4 hypers all the way across. Oh, Texter takes a bit slowly there, but gets to the end anyway, and then resets when he picks up the key to start from the beginning of that room, saving the amount of time it would take for him to get back to the start. And thankfully, the developers wanted you to keep the key after you retried, so... Ah, Texter making a little bit of a mistake there, giving Zinpars a few more minutes to catch up, but at the same time, I've just realized Zinpars has been stuck on the screen for a very long time, actually. I didn't realize this at all. Like, he is going for a ridiculously hard strat there, which I guess is part of the reason for it, but that's really unfortunate. He's dropped a lot of time here against Texter. Texter doing a wave dash again. It's really interesting to see how many wave dashes he's been doing, because I don't see wave dashes in these positions from a lot of runners, but it seems to be what he's comfortable with, and it's pretty awesome to see. This is the Oshiro chase section, by the way. Zinpars got like a perfect hyper room to get that key. And Oshiro follows you, marks your horizontal coordinate, and then tries to dash at you. You get a bit of a bolt of lightning as like a warning of when he's going to come over, but... Oh, that's an unfortunate death there from Texter. Accidentally falls before dashing, but... Yeah, we see Texter going for the death cycle here, and retrying right at the start for that. Because the death cycle is just easier for him to deal with personally for this room. It's a very tricky room. You have to worry about not only Oshiro, but also the Dust Bunny patterns, so... He's clearly just more comfortable with the pattern from the death cycle, so... He finishes Celestial Resort with a pretty decent time. He's 10:09 on the timer. Sorry, 10:47, and we'll have to see what Zinpars finishes up at. It's worth noting that Texter did stop a little bit, like, after he finished that chapter, and didn't mash out the final cutscene or whatever. And that doesn't really matter, because this is based on in-game time. So the timer you'll see is... takes out the bits in between the chapters, basically. Zinpars with an interesting route through Oshiro, but manages to get there in the end with 11:29, so he's about 42 seconds behind going into Golden Ridge, which is definitely something that can be made up in later chapters, because they get more difficult and they get longer, so if you start to have a bad chapter and it goes downhill pretty quickly, then anything could happen for the rest of the race. Okay, we now see Texter in Golden Ridge. And we have these moving platforms, which are pretty cool. We have wind, which pushes you backwards or forwards, depending on the direction. Like this one is pushing him forwards, for example. We have some more lock switches, these blue bubbles, that basically act as another dash in whatever direction you press. And you can dash as soon as you touch the bubbles to start them quicker. These clouds are pretty cool. You can use them in interesting ways with our dash mechanics to gain momentum, such as you can do a dash and then a jump on one of the clouds, and you get extra height because the clouds sort of act as trampolines. Ooh, Texter going for another spike jump here, manages to get it, second try, very nice. Right here is going to be doing a wall jump through the transition, which is something you can do. You can dash on one room, and then when you get to the second room, you can jump for a nice little upwards hyper dash, wall jump, wall bounce, something like that. I forget the term. Texter opting not to go for an auto-scroller skip here, which is something that I believe Zinpars will be going for a bit later, so if he manages to get that first try, then that's another little bit of time save that he can get. I know it's fairly early on in the chapter, but it does look like Zinpars is a bit more confident with the wind mechanics and the clouds in this level, so we may see him take a good chunk of the lead that Texter had away. Yeah, Texter's actually opting to not go for that skip there as well, because he died a couple times, so we'll see if Zinpars can have a really solid few rooms, and he could definitely catch up here by quite a lot. Texter going for some wave dashes here, as I would expect him to do, and he nails it, so manages to get through that room. Oh, fails the wall bounce there on the left side of your screen. This has unfortunately been quite a weak chapter from Texter so far to his standards, I believe. So, again, Zinpars is really catching up here. Gets past that room first try. Actually going for reverse hypers, which are pretty damn cool. It's so basically you can do all these types of dash jumps, but you can also dash in one direction and then jump in the other direction, and that also works as like a reverse of that dash. So that's pretty cool. We'll see that a couple of times throughout the run, especially for one or two bigger skips. Okay, Texter gets through that room pretty cleanly. So he's still maintaining the bit of a lead he has, but, you know, a few more deaths here and there, and Zinpars could definitely catch up. We'll have to see how the rest of the chapter goes. Yeah, the snowballs here in the extreme wind section come from the right side of your screen, basically the opposite of a Shiro. They lock onto your horizontal position and come over every few seconds. They don't have a warning like Oshiro, but because they're from the right side of the screen, you can see them. Takes another death here. So if Zinpars has a clean rest of this section, he's definitely going to be making up a lot of time. Zinpars keeps getting hit by these snowballs here, trying to get some really fast strat there. Manages to get it. One thing I have noticed is that Texter seems to play quite safety-wise, whereas Zinpars goes for quite more difficult strats. So we'll see how this affects the race throughout the race, but Texter just finished a Golden Ridge here. Manages to finish it, and skips the cutscene at 5:18. And Zinpars really not that far behind, if not taking the lead here. Does take a death, but he can still make it before 15:18, I believe. Let's see what his time finishes at. 15:17.5 or so. So he's actually about 0.5 seconds in front of Texter right now, is Zinpars. A reminder that in-game time is what matters, so although you do see Texter in the lead on the left here, technically, Zinpars does have a lower in-game time entering this chapter, so he is currently technically ahead. But nonetheless, a very, very close race so far. Texter getting a skip there, which means you don't have to go all the way to the left through two screen transitions to get a red bubble to take you all the way back to there. As you see Zinpars going for it on hit screen 2, gets it the same method as well, which is a method I haven't really been seen used, so well played to both of these runners. You'll see the momentum of these moving platforms used here on both of their screens throughout this chapter, and the moving platforms are just a really, really cool mechanic where if you dash, they move in a set direction, and it can be used to get quite a lot of momentum in some points in this chapter, as Zinpars shows off there. Wow, I didn't expect him to actually do that, but uses the momentum to travel all the way across the screen. Hopefully you guys call that. Okay, so now you hit the buttons, lower the curtain, and now we're about to experience the Seekers. The Seekers are an enemy, and as you get to play as them right here and showcase their movement, basically to prepare you for just how fast and brutal these guys can be, as we're going to see that a lot towards the end of the chapter. Pretty clean passage of play for there from Texter, gets through pretty easily. Zinpars has a little bit of trouble here hitting some walls, but managed to get through pretty good in the end. Now we skip a bunch of cutscenes on the left, because who cares about cutscenes and speedruns? And finally, we see our first Seeker that's going to be chasing us. And these guys are really interesting because their AI is spectacularly good. Like, they home in really hard on you. So that's one thing that you've got to... Ooh, nearly gets hit there on the left from Texter. And again, but manages to butt stomp the Seeker there. Another interesting thing about these Seekers is that you can use them to hit switches for you. So these lock switches you see, you can actually use the Seekers to hit them for you by manipulating where they dash. So you'll see that on text screen right here. He's just going to grab onto the top wall, let the Seeker hit the switch at the top, and then get the ones at the bottom himself. And Zinpars is actually on the same screen here. Remember, the Zinpars in-game time is quite a bit ahead, by like 15 seconds at this point, so... Yeah, he's definitely in the lead by a little bit. Takes a couple deaths in that room though, so Texter gets a bit more breathing room. Or gets to catch up a bit more, I should say. This is currently about a 10-second difference between both runners in terms of in-game time, so very close race so far. Surge skip coming up. Hopefully they both get it deathless, but one of them could lose a little bit of time here to the other runner. Texter's going for the reverse, wave dash, gets it perfectly. Really, really good surge skip from him. And Zinpars follows it up with exactly the same, so well done to both runners. It's a skip that saves anywhere between 2 to 3 minutes, because you have to go and collect a bunch of keys and then take a red bubble all the way. Basically the same as the first skip in the level, but a lot more time is saved from this one. And both runners are now coming up to the Theo section. So Theo is the guy in this crystal. You met him throughout the story, and you can do a bunch of interesting things with the Theo crystal. So you can't actually dash while holding him, but if you throw him and then dash, and then grab onto him, you can get the extra bit of movement. So you'll see that used quite a lot throughout the section, as much as possible to conserve momentum and go super fast. You'll also see in quite a few places where you will dash, pick up Theo, and then do a jump on the ground when you land, and that's it's basically called a bunny hop, and it conserves your momentum for a little bit of extra time. Texter butt stomping the Seeker there gets through that run pretty. So although Zinpars did save quite a lot of time at the start of this chapter and in Golden Ridge, it seems like Texter has done really well up to this point during the Theo section to save a bit of time. Gets through it from second try, that's not a problem at all. And Texter is now in the last room that can kill him in this section. Actually taking the fast route here, so props to him. That was a really, really solid run. And he's going to be coming up to the end here. Oh, leaves Theo behind. Who needs Theo? Yeah, these shockwaves push you back every now and then. If you dash immediately after the shockwave hits you, then you can not get affected by it, basically. Ah, Zinpars having some trouble there right at the end of that last room. That's a shame. If he managed to get that room pretty cleanly, then he would have been able to be ahead after this chapter, but I just can't hit the switch right now. Keeps getting blocked off by the Seeker, manages to get through finally and jump up there and gets through it. So Texter really saving some time here in that chapter 5. It was very, very solid, and I'm sure he's quite proud of that one. Zinpars had some unfortunate deaths here and there, but finishes it up with a 606. And Texter is about 16, 17 seconds ahead right now, so he saved a lot of time in that Mirror Temple. Okay, we're introduced to the feather mechanic, as you can see used on both screens here. As Zinpars goes for leg skip, he's going to go for it again as well. It's where you get a wall jump and then another wall bounce in mid-air. That was very, very solid. Second try leg skip. Zinpars is going for some really, really difficult strats that I wouldn't consider someone with a 40-minute time to be getting, so it'd be interesting to know if his PB is actually better than the one on speedrun.com. Or maybe he just likes to go for all these good strats in hopes that, you know, when he gets consistent at them, he'll have a really, really solid time. Ooh, Texas taking the bottom route through this section. I've never actually seen that before. I usually only see the top route, so that was interesting. Thank you for that one, Texter. Another couple wave dashes here. He doesn't seem to be very confident at getting extended hyper dashes and goes for wave dashes pretty much all the time, which is really interesting. I'm sure we're gonna... Okay, he goes for a different strat in that room, using the Kevin block there to get a burst of momentum. Yeah, it seems like Zinpars does have the go hard or go home mentality for his runs, which is really, really nice to see. Like, I love seeing runners that maybe aren't like at the top level go for really difficult strats. It's pretty awesome, especially when Zinpar got like skip second try. That's very impressive. And it must be said that right now, with the slight gap between Texter and Zinpars here, Zinpars does kind of need to go for some trickier strats to catch up. Okay, we're coming towards the end of the section here, which is just like kind of relaxed, fun, feather uses and stuff like that. So we see Granny here, skip the cutscene. And now we're going to be chasing Badelin's hair on the right side of the screen here, as you can see. Sorry, the right side of Texter's screen. And this section here has got a few shortcuts. Texter, probably see him go for all three of them. This one right here, where you can just hug the end and then you can fall down through the gaps. Does it very well. And he goes for the third shortcut without getting the checkpoint. That's something I didn't expect him to do. He looked a little bit shaky there, but manages to get all three checkpoints first try. So really good section from him, and we're going to have to see if Zinpars can do the same. Okay, we'll see how Texter chooses to use the momentum of the Kevin block here. I'm assuming he's going to wave dash at some point. No, he just plays it safe, waits until the Kevin block is really close to the edge. Doesn't want to take any unnecessary deaths at this point, considering he does have a slight lead, so I'm sure he just wants to play nice and clean and not die too much. But yeah, Texter is now starting the Badlin boss fight here, where instead of being chased by her, like in one of the first chapters, you're actually chasing her. Zinpars actually got the checkpoint there before that last shortcut, and thankfully he did, because he died in the shortcut, so good decision from him. But yeah, in this boss fight, you'll see her Badlin shoot lasers at you. She can also shoot balls at you. Look at the balls on this chick. They're pretty frightening. So yeah, there's a couple obstacles here that we need to avoid, but there aren't too many new things in terms of tech. We're still going to see a lot of the same jumps that we've seen in the past and stuff like that, but just used in a cool and creative way to get through this boss fight and hit Badlin as quickly as possible. And a small reminder that Zinpars is behind by somewhere between 20 or 30 seconds, so at this point in time, any death from Texter is pretty damn costly, because Zinpars will be catching up, as long as he doesn't die himself. I just jinxed it. Okay. I'm gonna stop. It's so cool to see both runners going for some really hard, intricate strats, even though it's Texter taking a bit of a death there at the end of that section. This is a little tricky section here where you got to go faster hitter, and he manages to get it second try, which really isn't that bad. But yeah, every death is costly, and we're starting to see that here. As Zinpars, I believe, has caught up a little bit. We'll have to see how the rest of the chapter goes, and then I can make sort of like an accurate comparison when the chapter finishes. Texter is now on the second point of the chapter, where the music changes slightly, and she's now gone sort of Super Saiyan and now has telekinetic powers and can move platforms at will, so we now experience that from her. Zinpars is now coming up to the second section as well. Using the momentum here of the platforms to shoot you upwards there. We have 2 more rooms left on Texter's side of the boss fight, and this is the second to last one. Seems to be going pretty cleanly so far. He's got one more small section here to do, and he is home free to the final room. Ooh, Texter nearly hit those lasers there. It was like an action replay of that shot, because that was very close to hitting the lasers, and it would have meant Zinpars could catch up more, but he doesn't touch them. Zinpars now strolling through these rooms. He's now going to be on the last room of this boss fight as well. As Texter now has 2 dashes, as you can see, he leveled up, but the most important thing, he now has pink hair. Ooh, Zinpars with really interesting strats to dodge those lasers here. I think he's just playing it safe here. And oh, okay, manages to get battle in there. It was very close though. Okay, so Texter finishes up with a 28-38 on reflection. So we're going to see Zinpars about 20 to 25 seconds behind here, most likely. Yeah, it's going to be roughly 20 seconds difference going into the final section here, the summit. Texter going for a wave dash here. I wouldn't expect anything less, but it's having a little bit of trouble with it. I'm sure I'll get it third try here. So Summit, it's worth saying because I know there is a 20-second gap right now, but Summit is the longest chapter in the game by far. Reflection is anywhere between like 5 and 7 minutes. Summit is more like 9 minutes, you know, so we will see quite a large section here with plenty of time for Zinpars to catch up if Texter has a lot of deaths. There's also some notoriously hard sections in Summit, so we may see quite a few deaths here from either player, and it'll be really interesting to see how it turns out. So Summit, if you don't know, is a culmination of all of the chapters in the game put together, so you get to do a little section based on each chapter, each lasting roughly a minute long. But one of the best things about this is now that you have 2 dashes, you get to use the mechanics from these chapters in a completely new way, which is really, really cool to see. And in some cases, like the chapter that Text is currently doing, Chapter 1 for Summit, we actually use mechanics that we didn't actually see in Chapter 1, because we just skipped them all. So that's pretty cool as well. And in the final section of each of these, the final room of each of these sections, we'll see Battlein helping us to get higher and higher to throw us up the mountain. That's because we've kind of linked up here, as you can tell, because we can dash twice and that kind of thing. We now get to the Chapter 2 section, which has Dream Bubbles. And now with 2 dashes, we can do even cooler things with them. Ooh, Texter unfortunately dashing downwards out of that block. Manages to get through a second try though. Texter missing the dream blocks here with his dashes. Again, gets through it afterwards, so he's not... Although he's taking quite a few deaths here, which is allowing Zinpars a bit of time to catch up, he's not getting walled on any of these screens, you know, taking way too long to do them yet, so... He's still got a fairly comfortable lead. He touched the orb there at 31.33, so if you want to look at Zinpars' screen when he gets to the final room and see how far behind he was, that would be great. As text is entering the Chapter 3 section, which is notoriously difficult, especially for beginner runners. It's got a lot of really tight strats that you can do. And we'll see how well Texter navigates through these screens. Manages to get through that one first try, so he's doing pretty well here. Zinpars actually touching the orb at 31.42, I believe. So he's only 9 seconds behind. He's caught up 10 seconds in the first part of Summit already, which just shows how difficult this Summit can be and how costly deaths can be. Texter having a bit of trouble with that screen, but manages to get through it eventually. Has a really interesting strat for that room. That was pretty cool. I enjoyed watching that one. Ooh, nearly makes it to the wall there, but it's going to reset the cycle because, again, like the death cycle, a lot of players just aren't used to getting. So, Texter going for a really, really hard strat here. As Zinpars is actually in the room. Without my knowledge, he's just completely surged past Texter here with some really, really good 1500 meters. He has really practiced this section, you can tell. And he's into the final room now, so I think this is the first case in which we can actually switch audio. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so Zinpars just went through a room that had the strawberry in it, and strawberries don't really mean anything, but in that case, it's actually better to take the shortcut route with the strawberry. It takes a little bit of time, as they're both in the same room again, so Texter has clearly caught up a lot more here. And I must remind you that although it's pretty hype to see them both in pretty much the same place, the in-game timer of Zinpars is about 12 seconds ahead, so he is 12 seconds in the lead. Oh, misses the ledge! He misses the ledge, and Texter's taking it safe. He's taking the slow method, which in this point really helped him here. He didn't go for a scroll skip. Zinpars failed it again, so Texter here with a bit of a lead. Does take a death in the next room. Zinpars is going to decide to take it a little bit slower here. Yeah, Zinpars seem to take it a bit slow. I wonder if he's watching the stream and knows how close this race is. Okay, so I don't mean to alarm you or anything, but both runners are roughly 3 seconds apart on the in-game timer, so this is pretty hype right now. There's only a few sections to go. I have no idea what's going to happen. Zinpars taking a death there. Texter looks to be getting through the last room deathless. He does, so touches the orb at 34.52. And is now into Chapter 5 section, which again, really hard section that has a lot of cool skips, and we'll have to see if either of them get walled on these skips. Zinpars touches the orb at 34.53 and is currently 1 second behind in in-game time. See Texter go for a bit of a slow strat in that room. We'll have to see if Zinpars go for a faster one when he gets there. Texter going for key skip here. Let's see what try he gets it. Okay, gets it pretty cleanly, so not too bad. And Zinpars also having a little bit of trouble with that room, so we seem to be going having pretty similar sections here in Chapter 5, which is cool to see. Zinpars really clean key skip here, might be catching up slightly. Texter here going to be going for a little gap. Oh, gets through the gap first try with a wave dash. Pretty sick. He's going for door skip. Can't get it first try. Is he going to try and go for it again? He's not. He's going to take it safe. Probably the good option here, considering how close behind Zinpars is. Gets through that room. Finds Zinpars first try in that room as well. See if he gets door skip. Oh, also fails it. Let's see if he gets it again. He's going for it. That's the first one. One more. Gets it. Alright, so he gets door skip. He looks to be a couple seconds ahead now, possibly. I can't really tell. It's very close. This is a long run. Texter coming up to the end of the room here. A death here will be very costly. Manages to get through it. Touches the orb. 36-28. Let's see when Zinpars touches it. He can't die here. Zinpars cannot die here. It would be too much of a deficit. Touches the orb at 26. So Zinpars is about 2 seconds ahead right now in-game time. This is incredibly intense, coming up to 3,000 meters. Which we're going to see a lot of wall bounces being used here. The dash into a wall and then a jump to get some extra speed. Texter going to the left side of your screen here. Watch out on Zinpars' screen right now, because he may go to the right and take a little hidden wall here to get a wall jump. He is going for it. Gets the second try. Oh, never mind. Okay, does get up there eventually, so that probably didn't save much time on Texter's route. Another example of how playing it safe in these races may actually be more beneficial than anything. This is the downdraft section, by the way, so the wind is pushing you downwards. Texter takes a death there. So your jumps go a little bit lower, your dashes go a little bit lower, stuff like that, so you have to really adjust your playing style for this section. Zinpars taking some deaths here. He needs to get through the section cleanly. Okay, manages to get the next checkpoint. Okay, Texter touches the next orb at 37-44. So we'll have to see what Zinpars can do here. He's going to be quite far behind, actually, going into the updraft section. So Texter actually saved a decent amount of time. Okay, so Texter is about 8 seconds ahead right now in terms of in-game time. He saved 9 seconds on the downdraft section, which is a very impressive shift in time here. Texter is now coming up to quite possibly the longest checkpoint in the game, so if he dies here, it could be a very, very costly death, and could even put Zinpars in the lead after one death, so we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully he doesn't die here. This last section, got to get through a small hole, manages to do it, gets to the next checkpoint, very impressive. Zinpars, again, just about to start this checkpoint, so we'll see if he dies here too, but the focus right now is on Texter. He's a little bit in the lead, and it's going to be really interesting to see if he can keep this going. I'm going to go ahead and switch the audio to Texter right now. As Zinpars takes some really unfortunate deaths here on this chapter. Okay, so Texter's now getting towards the last sections of the game. Zinpars still quite a decent bit behind, so as long as Texter doesn't have too many unfortunate deaths here, he's going to be winning this race. Gets the feather. Gets through that section pretty cleanly, so he's now on flag 3. See if he gets through this gap here. He does. He's on flag 2. Zinpars is about, I'd say, 25 seconds behind at this point, so as long as Texter doesn't die quite a few times here, he's got a pretty clean run to the end. And he's on flag 1, so Texter managing to clutch it out right at the end. Had some really, really excellent play in the updraft section that saved about 10 seconds on Zinpars, and then in the section after that as well, he performed very, very well and finishes with a 40.04. Which, judging by his splits, isn't a PB, but I'm sure it was pretty close. He had a very, very good race there, and the end was really, really good, so congratulations to Texter. He had a very, very solid final section there. So yeah, good games to Texter. That was a really, really interesting race where runners were very close throughout, so just thank you for the experience, Texter. Just thank you for that. Zinpars here is 40-30 on the timer. If his PB is still a 41, then this could be a PB for him. I'm not too sure, personally. It's a 40-36, so the runners end up 32 seconds behind each other. Very, very solid runs from both. GG's to Zinpars as well. Again, not sure if it was a PB, maybe he can enlighten us in chat. but very solid runs from both runners. Regardless, we see 33 deaths on our left side. I don't know how many deaths we're going to see on the right side, but I would imagine because Zinpars was using quite difficult strats throughout that he would end up with a few more deaths. So we'll see here. As he finishes up, skips the cutscene, he had 66 deaths. Twice as many deaths, and only 33 seconds away. That's just a testament to how many awesome and cool strats Zinpars went for. Unfortunately, he died one too many times on those strats, and Texter managed to walk away with the win, but still, very, very good from race from both of them. Hello. Okay, so we're about to get both of the runners in for a quick interview here. Texter, Zinpars, my guys, congratulations for a pretty sick race.
Yeah, how was we did?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We weren't able to see what was. I feel like given we were so close, I'd imagine that there were multiple points where the other was ahead.
Oh yeah, there were 2 or 3 lead changes.
Oh my god!
It was one of you. I can't remember who. Sorry, but one of you was a little bit ahead going into Golden Ridge, I believe.
Oh
yeah, sorry. Texter was ahead.
I was about to say that. I really played Golden Ridge waffle.
Yeah, and Zinpars had a very solid Golden Ridge as well compared to yours, and managed to save like 20 seconds. And
oh my
both
god,
pretty much tied, I think, going
holy
into
crap!
Golden Ridge. So
Wow.
and yeah, it was really, really close throughout. You were 2 seconds apart going into the final 3,000 meters or something. So
No way, really?
yeah, no, it was a really
Holy
exciting
crap.
race. There was a bit
That's
of a
insane.
there's a bit of a desync, but the in-game timers were really, really close, and it was an awesome race. So
Holy
you guys
crap!
both did well. Texter, congratulations on the win. This puts
Thank
you
you.
on 4-2, if I'm correct.
Oh no, this is my first win, man.
Oh, sorry, right. I mixed your scores up. So you're now 1-2.
Yep.
And Zinpars goes down to 3-3. But are you still confident that you can qualify from your group? How's it looking?
It's still possible. Like I think me, Texter, and I cut.
Yes.
All have similar PBs, and only 2 of us can at once.
Right, exactly.
So it depends.
Yeah, I think we're all within like 2 minutes of PB.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I cut and I lost to Texter. So I guess it depends on how the other 2 play against each other. Have you
Right,
played?
yeah. We really need to have a look at this group throughout the next week and see how it goes. You've only got like 3 more days to get your races done. So Texter, I'm assuming you've got quite a busy couple days coming up.
I do. I have 2 scheduled tonight and then 2 on Saturday.
Wow. Okay. So if anyone wants to follow this man's runs throughout the tournament, then you've got those matches coming up. Zinpars, do you have your last race planned yet?
Yep, it will be soon.
Soon, TM. Okay. So
Tomorrow. Yeah.
we've got a couple races from this group coming up tonight and tomorrow, which will pretty much decide who manages to qualify. And it's looking like a really close battle. So we've got that coming up. Should be really, really exciting. Thank you both for joining me. If there's anything else you'd like to say, then go ahead.
No, just GG to Texter, and thanks for commentating.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
so much for commentating. Appreciate it. Also, man, GG's in pause. It was I knew it would be really close. So that's insane that we were within 2 seconds of each other, man. That was definitely anyone's game.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was a really good race. Thank you guys for joining me.
Yeah,
You
totally.
may leave if you wish.
All right. Ciao.
All right,
See you later.
goodbye.
And now I'm going to have a quick talk to you, as we have a couple minutes, about the schedule that we have going on today for the Celeste Any Tournament. As we're coming up to the final deadline here on the 12th of August in a few days, we have quite a few races that have been like panic scheduled, or people just wanted to do them right at the end to maximize their practice. So we just had Texter against Zinpars, which was a fantastic race. Later on today, in about 6 hours, we're going to have Mr. Ike against Flesh. That may not be streamed, actually, so I'll go over the ones that will be streamed. I'm actually going to be racing. I have a race against Galaxy at 5 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Should be on Speed Gaming 3. So that match is coming up next if you want some more action. We're not sure if the other ones will be streamed just yet, so just stay tight for that. And update yourself on the schedule. But yeah, the next race will be at 10 p.m. as far as 5 p.m. Eastern time tonight between me and Galaxy. It's going to decide basically who gets third and fourth in my group. So personally, that's a pretty big match. So if you want to come over for that one, then feel free. And yeah, I've been Salad. Thank you so much for watching. I'll put the commentator and runners in the chat, so you can go follow them if you wish. I would recommend that you follow both Texter and Zinpars because they're both wonderful runners. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.